I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to a regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. It is October 24th, and the time is 7:01 p.m. I call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Trustee Davis.
Here.
Trustee Craig.
Here.
Trustee Harper.
Here.
Trustee Merrill.
Here.
Trustee Dorr.
Here.
President Barr.
Here.
Here. All trustees in attendance.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Do we have revisions to this evening's agenda?
Yes, staff is requesting to pull agenda item 4D, the Gibson Watershed Permit Application, from the agenda to put on the November 14th agenda. The Planning Commission tabled this application for more information and will be hearing it during their special meeting on November 1st. The public hearing notice was already published in the newspaper in advance, and that's why we had to put it on tonight's agenda.
Any objections? Great. Any other revisions to the agenda?
No.
Okay, awesome. So we'll now open our public comment period. We'll start with in-person comment and then move to Zoom comments. In person, please approach the podium, introduce yourself. I think there might be a sign-up sheet to put your name on. And then you'll have 3 minutes to speak and we'll keep time. And then for those of you on Zoom, you can go ahead and click the raise hand button and we'll queue you up for public comment following the in-person public comment. Any in-person public comment this evening? Yeah.
Am I ready?
Thanks for having me tonight. I'm Lisa Merrill. I'm here strictly as a citizen of Silverton representing myself. And I'm here to speak about the wetland found at 7th and 8th Streets and Snowden Street. One of my top concerns regarding the road approval in this wetland is that neighbors were not notified in this process that I believe is called a deviation. As I go through our own grueling process with our own wetland work off of Campground Road, I feel neighbor notification should be an absolute requirement and not skipped during this approval. Town has received ample feedback regarding protecting our natural resources, including wetlands and habitat corridors. The in-depth master plan effort that we just underwent identifies that our energy should be spent in protecting and restoring them rather than impacting them. The town must decide what code should look like for those wetland protections. The value of wetlands can be difficult to quantify. They improve water quality, recharge water supplies following storms, provide water during periods of drought, reduce flooding and erosion, create very effective fire barriers, provide essential wildlife habitat, and are an incredible source of biodiversity. For volumes of carbon within their plant biomass instead of releasing it to the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. So each and every one of them are climate moderators. Draining and clearing wetlands releases carbon dioxide. Keeping groundwater in the ground whenever possible should be a goal of town code, regardless of Army Corps participation and federal laws. It's a responsibility on each of our shoulders. When we daylight groundwater and dewater a wetland, its associated waters leave the upper Animas watershed rapidly through evaporation and surface water mobilization. Any cut in this wetland, and especially the up to 10-foot cut scheduled for the road in this plan, will daylight this precious groundwater. And I observed puddled surface water last week at this site after a dry stretch in mid-October, which suggests a 10-foot cut may have a dramatic dewatering effect. Once we cut a road in wetlands, the downhill wetland from that cut suffers dramatically. It may all but die. That hydrologic connection or flow path is removed from the system. By approving this road and associated development, town may dewater much of the wetland below it. Millions of dollars are being spent all over the county to heal the very types of wounds on the landscape that will be created by this approval. The program I work for out in the county is striving to mimic and achieve the very conditions found on this site. And last but not least, expensive and rigorous maintenance routines must be anticipated anywhere that a wetland is cut by a road and other developments. The town will be absorbing those long-term costs with this approval. I hope the town will revisit this particular plan, find something that works better, and then look long-term codes in accordance with wetland importance. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. That was exactly 3 minutes. Do we have any other in-person comment this evening? Okay, moving to our Zoom attendee comments. Sandy, we have you promoted to panelist, and it looks like you just unmuted. So the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. My name is Sandy Campuzano. I am a fourth-generation Silvertonian. Our family has loved Silverton, the mountains, and the nature surrounding us since the late 1800s. I was born in Silverton Hospital and graduated from Silverton School. Our home is at 746 Snowden. Tonight, I am here as an advocate for my neighbors, the wetlands, located above Snowden. I fulfilled my dream of building a home here because we had to build the road, protect the wetlands, and manage steep terrain. It was a complex and difficult project. It took 6 years because we could not build a road that affected the wetlands due to federal regulations. 20 years later, the federal government has failed to protect these wetlands due to new regulations. They no longer have jurisdiction over them. The town code of Silverton does not have specific protections for these wetlands. The town code is dated and vague about protecting them. To that point, I understand that the code is under review and being rewritten to bring it into modern times. I believe the citizens deserve this effort. This effort is also what the newly adopted master plan calls for under the headline priorities. This master plan specifically calls for responsible land use and updating of local use policies. Wetlands also provide a haven for wildlife. We see moose and elk bedded down for food in harsh winters, deer who raise their families in the wetlands year after year. The wetlands are a pristine, historical, and unique site. Silverton should value protecting this wildlife and their home. The road plan recently adopted by the town council would destroy the wetlands. This would be a tragedy. Once gone, the wetlands cannot be restored. Again, I refer to the new master plan under goals, which states to steward and protect the environment and natural assets we love and rely on. In conclusion, I have 2 questions. Is there no sacred square space in Silverton? As the citizens, we need to ask, what do we value more? Protecting the wetlands or destruction in the name of more development? The much celebrated master plan shows great promise for Silverton to move forward, an opportunity like none that I can recall. Now is the time to step up, implement the plan, and save what we have stated is an asset to be protected. In other words, save the wetlands. As such, I am requesting a temporary moratorium on any plan that involves destroying wetlands until a complete review has been made of the engineering of the road plan, the watershed plan, and an updating of the town code regarding the protection of the wetlands. Thank you for your consideration and your time.
Thank you, Sandy. It doesn't look like we have any other public comment at this time. So we'll go ahead and close public comment for anyone who does want to speak later. Oh, never mind. We just got one hand up. So we'll continue this public comment. We also will have a closing public comment if anyone changes their mind about speaking later on in the meeting. So we're promoting Stephen Golick to panelist now. Stephen, if you unmute yourself, the floor is yours.
Yes, can you hear me now?
We can.
Oh, thank you. All right, new to this. Those are very good points made about the wetlands. And my name is Stephen Golick. I'm an architect. I've done a number of projects in Silverton and have been before this board and many others in the past 40 years. And I wonder how much study the town board has been able to apply to the proposed road design. Besides its impact on the wetlands, I would very much question the suitability of its design as a method to access the Shrine Hill lots for future development. This is more like something that someone has proposed to almost like a private driveway to reach one or two houses for something that would access the rest of that hill and have additional potential traffic on it in the future is something that I wonder if the town has really studied. Has there been a traffic study of potential development on Shrine Hill and how it would possibly be serviced by this proposed road design that narrows down to 24 feet of width on a sharp turn above a very steep drop off? And some propose maybe 20-mile-per-hour speed limit is the limit at which it has been designed. I would really question that this design is in any way appropriate for future development. And I would encourage the board to take a step back and take more input on the engineering and suitability of this proposed design. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. At this time, it doesn't look like there's any further public comment, so we'll go ahead and close the public comment period and move on to the next item on our agenda, which is item 3A, presentations and proclamations, San Juan Development Association and Dola's Main Street Community Presentation.
Hello, we're waiting for one more person. I think Tracy is also on the line.
She's being promoted to panelist right now.
There we go. I'm promoted. This is great. Well, good evening, everyone. Hi, Beth.
Hi, Gail. Thank you for joining. Hi, Tracy. Thank you, trustees, for having us today. Gail, if you don't mind, I'll just say a few things and I'll pass it over to you.
Please.
Great. So appreciate being on the agenda today. You might remember a couple of trustees meetings ago, about a month and a half, I came to you all talking about the Main Street program that DOLA has to offer and the interest from San Juan Development to apply for that program. And so today we are going through our application. Tracy and Gail did present to my board a couple of weeks ago, and they have approved the continuation of this application and program. And the next step is then to have them introduce themselves to you, also go through some of the program details and be here to answer any questions you have. And then with your approval or blessing to move forward, San Juan Development will continue that application and keep you all updated. So with that, I'll pass it over to Gail and Tracy.
Well, good evening, everyone. We just have a couple of slides here since we're not there with you in person in your beautiful, beautiful part of the country. We're just going to share a few slides. We'll keep it to about 9 minutes and then have plenty of time and stay on if you guys have questions. I'm Gail Langley. I've been at DOLA for about 5.5 years. I was a Main Street manager in Granby, Colorado, before I had the wonderful opportunity to join a wonderful staff in a wonderful organization. You guys all are probably familiar with DOLA and who we are and what we represent. Tracy?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Tracy Stoffel. I've been the Main Street specialist here at DOLA for about 3.5 years now. Prior to joining the state, I was with the Colorado Municipal League for 13 years. And before that, I was with the statewide historic preservation nonprofit Colorado Preservation Incorporated for 5 years. So I like to say I've been around the Main Street movement for a long time, and I'm just really happy to be working more directly with cities and towns on community-led efforts for their downtown. Our colleague who's not with us today is Larry Lucas. He's our Main Street architect. We're really fortunate to have a full-time architect here on staff in Colorado. He too has lots of experience with Main Street. He's been here in Colorado for about 5 years now, and prior to that, he was with the Oklahoma program. So as you can tell from that statement, I hope that this is a nationwide movement. It was founded by the National Trust for Historic Preservation back in 1980 when people were leaving the downtowns for suburbia. It has grown to be about 1,400 communities nationwide. We have 22 official communities throughout the state. That's what we're going to be talking about a little bit more here is what it takes to be an official community and what you get in return. Silverton is one of our affiliates, and we do work with about, I've got to do quick math, 68 other communities across the state as affiliates, but we are a public servant, so we try to help anybody who gives us a call. As we mentioned, we're housed within the Department of Local Affairs here in Colorado. Just a quick overview of what that Main Street approach means. It's also known as the 4-point approach. You can see the 4 points here. It's really grounded in organization, right? Just like anything else, you need to have the right people in the room. We want to make sure that there's community input moving forward. That's truly community vision. But they also have the stakeholders who are going to those meetings, regular meetings, and being consulted in that point of contact for us to work with and share information with, to share the information out to the community. I mentioned that it was grounded in historic preservation, which again, Silverton is just an absolutely gorgeous National Historic District. And aside from that, in such a beautiful location, but it goes beyond just kind of the built-in natural environment. It's about benches, benches, banners, flower programs, just kind of everything to make your downtown attractive. Economic vitality, providing that support to your current business owners, as well as helping attract the right new businesses into your community. And promotion, making sure people know that downtown Silverton is the place to be. Gail?
Sure. Well, this slide is here. We're not going to go through all of the details, but the beauty about the Colorado Main Street program is we work with each community individually to find out who might be the best point of contact and place for this program to be run. So you can see we have everything from nonprofits to chambers, to city and towns, and even one county economic development corporation. So it's all what works with you, your key stakeholders, and coming alongside of the town to work collaboratively on your downtown revitalization goals in conjunction with Main Street's strength that brings the community and the business community alongside to work on things together. You can go to the next slide. So some of our benefits, you know, they're carrots. They're not large. You don't join this program because of what we offer. You join this program because of what it can do in and with your community. But we do offer small mini grants. They're small when you first start. They're about $2,500 per year. They go up as you advance in the tiers. We offer free scholarship money with no match requirements so that you can attend a couple of the trainings that we require through our MOU. And I think our biggest consulting services project fund is where people have really tapped in to move the dial on working with the city and town and saying, what is it that you have in your master plan that Main Street could partner with you in terms of getting a challenge moving in the right direction. And I'm going to share a slide, a few slides from now. It's going to talk about the variety and types of projects that those, you know, that those consultant funds can be used for. And then you have staff, Tracy, I, and Larry. We're a lean, mean team of 3, but we also have resources and offer educational opportunities once a month for something that is kind of, you know, highlighted or something that is current that people need to know about what other opportunities are out there from our state agencies. And then you're plugged into a network that in Colorado, it's a network of 80, and nationally it's more than 1,400 communities. We love to use the term replicate and duplicate. If you have something that's a challenge in your community, you can pretty much be guaranteed that another community has faced that similar or same challenge themselves. So we work together as a family to share resources, share ideas, and come together to help you move the dial.
So here's just a couple of real quick examples of what people have used their mini grants for. It's kind of for those long-term investments, tangible investments in a community. What I always like to say is like, we'll help with the flower pots, but not the flowers, or we'll help with a brochure to promote your downtown, but not an event. Just kind of think long-term. And the most successful communities, again, those are teeny tiny grants, but leverage those funds with other grant opportunities.
So this is the one that I talked about that I think is probably the biggest impact that we offer our communities. And you'll notice I have the first 2 of them bolded. It really all comes down to the organization. Where is this going to be housed? Who's going to be our point of contact? So what we like to do, or what we strategically have done, and it's been very successful in the last couple of years, is to give you some really solid foundation and footing to submit a competitive grant application for review. So we will help you and your Main Street team in, you know, collaboration with the town, develop a vision, mission, transformational strategies, and a work plan for the following year. We'll also help the Main Street team, which is either a board or a steering committee, to come together as a unit with defined roles and responsibilities, and actually a plan that they can work, you know, towards in achieving, you know, great goals. But just some other examples on here of the variety of things that we do once you're in the program. Parking studies are always contentious. We've done quite a few of those. We've done gateway signs. We've done infill designs. We've done plaza designs. We've done building and business inventories. We've done park designs. We've done all kinds of designs. We can get you all the way up through the construction bid document phase so that you can go after grant funding and maybe phase in your project over time. And that is the beauty of Main Street. It helps you leverage funds with other partner agencies like CDOT, for example, the Revitalize Main Street grant. You can use your mini grant funds as match for all other agencies except for DOLA. You can't match DOLA with DOLA. This is the last slide, guys. Tracy, you want to cover preservation architect?
Sure. So this is kind of what Larry offers our communities. Everything from just about anything design and about your downtown related, that physical aspect of it, except for the signed and stamped drawings. We can't go there with the state in terms of liability, but he can certainly give the building and business owners ideas on layouts, facade improvements, solar panels, much like what the Main Street Open for Business funding did in your community. He and Beth got to know each other really well in terms of working with History Colorado to get the plans approved by our State Historic Preservation Office. He also does trainings, workshops, helps with walking tours, helps with ideas for downtown public space. So again, just anything design oriented, he is there to help out. And I'll go ahead and stop sharing, Gail, do you think, and take questions?
Yeah, we tried to be respectful of your time and keep it to about 9 minutes. And this was a lot. Usually we actually spend about an hour going into more depth about the program, its methodology, its foundation. But I think this is enough to maybe whet your appetite about what the program is. And I think knowing who DOLA is represents a strength that we bring to our communities on a daily basis.
Well, thank you very, very much. I don't know where we'd be without DOLA. And we appreciate all of you contributing your time and effort to bring these great resources to Silverton. So starting with that, thanks so much. Trustees, or staff, are there any questions or feedback or comments related to the presentation?
No, and I think our next step, Beth and I are drafting a resolution to become part of the Main Street communities, and that'll be presented to you all. But this gives you a good background before you get that resolution in front of you.
Yeah, seems like a great program.
And we would like to mention, it is competitive to get into the program. I mean, not in terms of we only take a certain number, but we really want to ensure that people have embraced the approach and are ready to take it on, because we want to see that long-term success. But that said, once you're accepted in the program, your family, you're always invited in. So, we won't kick you away from the Thanksgiving table, I say, unless you decide not to come, right? Unless you decide it's no longer for you. So all of these things that we talked about in terms of the mini grants, the scholarships, the consulting services, once you're in the program, those are non-compete. But it does take a while to get into the program because it is long-term. We're here for the long haul.
Too. Yeah. Yeah, and I just want to commend Beth real quick with the work she did with Main Street Open for Business. I mean, you were not a Main Street community and you wrote a very compelling application, and you've got solar and buildings that have been rejuvenated down there. We have you on video with the words that you said about how small investments can make huge impacts in your downtown. Beth managed that program admirably. She was always on call with our monthly calls. So in case you guys didn't know, we really want to award and commend Beth for her efforts in this one-time grant award for Main Street Open for Business, fulfilling all of the grant requirements. Kudos, Beth.
Thank you. That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
I think too, I just wanted to echo what Shane said, that we really appreciate you giving your time tonight to come and meet with us, and for Beth's great coordination. And it seems like this is a great nexus of our master plan, the success we've had with the Main Street Open for Business grant, and now being able to potentially pursue this partnership. It just seems like a really great win for our small but mighty community.
Yeah, so I appreciate hearing that. It sounds like there's approval to continue to move forward, which I appreciate. I don't know, Gloria, if you have to do anything formal on your side, but in terms of the timeline, I'm hoping that working with Gail and Tracy that we can submit this in the spring, and so that we would know soon thereafter, late spring, early summer, if we were involved in the application. So just that timeline as well.
Fantastic. Well, awesome. Thank you all very much. This is great, and we're excited to keep moving forward.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time tonight. Have a great meeting.
All right, we will now move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the 2021 audit presentation.
And so our auditor, Jim Hinkle, is being promoted to panelist right now, has offered to walk you all through our 2021 audit. This was a difficult time to switch auditors for staff because it was a time of transition for our community. And I just really appreciate the firm helping us out. James and his team were really just guided us through trying to find all our documents and get all our ducks in a row. So huge thank you to Jim. Thanks.
Can you hear me okay?
We can, yes.
Great. Well, thank you very much for allowing me an opportunity to come in and make a presentation to the town council. My name is Jim Hinkle with Hinkle and Company CPAs. And as Gloria mentioned, this was our first year on the audit. It was interesting, took a little longer than what I think anyone had anticipated, but a lot of that, I believe, is as a result of the prior auditor that you were using and the prior staff within the town. One thing that helped us tremendously was Christine and the town utilizing her skills to help reconcile the financial statements, the subsidiary ledgers, and really kind of clear the way for us as we move through the audit process. We started off our audit by examining the town's internal accounting controls. Primarily, we are looking for what most people hear as a segregation of duties. A accounting transaction takes 3 steps: the initiation, the approval, and the recording of the transaction. And we don't want one person to do all 3 of those steps, and that's the segregation of duties. We also look at the policies and procedures of the town, and we do this for 2 reasons. The first is that we want to determine whether there are any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in the internal control structure. A significant deficiency is defined as a design flaw in the system of internal controls that would allow an error to go undetected in the ordinary course of business. And a material weakness is a significant deficiency that could result in a material misstatement to the financial statements. And we did not find any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in the internal accounting controls. That's the answer that you want to hear. Yeah. The second reason we do that is for us to determine the risk associated with the financial statements and design our tests over the actual financial statements. We use primarily substantive testing, which is made up of test of details, which pretty much is what it sounds like. We drill down in account balances and we look at the underlying transactions that make up that account balance, and we verify those with supporting documentation like invoices, cash receipts, contracts, grant awards, things of that nature. And we also use analytic review where we're comparing the current year, the prior year, the current year to the budgeted amounts. We look at balance sheet accounts like receivables to revenues and payables to expenditures. And we're looking for relationships that we either can't explain or don't expect. And if we find any of those, we do more test of details. The end result of that is the audit opinion. And your opinion is what's referred to as an unmodified opinion, or in layman's term is a clean opinion. If anybody happened to look closely enough, it did change from the prior year, but that's because the AICPA decides about every 20 years to redo the standard audit report. This was the year. So even though it looks different than the previous years, it is still an unmodified or clean opinion. Christine was real pivotal to our process in reconciling things before we got in there. We did find some errors in the prior year's financial statements that we had to correct as we went forward into the current year. And Christine was instrumental in helping us in that process as well. So we feel like we have a very solid, strong financial statement that is in compliance with general accepted accounting principles. We also issue a letter called a required communication letter. It is a letter that we are required to communicate in writing if certain events occur in the process of an audit. And we really have nothing to report on anything of substance. We did not have any difficulties in the audit. We did not have any disagreements with management. We're not aware of management talking to other auditors. That goes back to the old opinion shopping days, where if we disagreed with management's accounting procedures, they would just go talk to other firms until they found one that agreed and would hire them. And we weren't aware of that. We did make a number of journal entries or audit entries where we corrected the books and records. Most of those were brought forth through Christine's efforts and her reconciliations of the books and records. Those audit entries are included in this required communication letter. And we also had 3 very small journal entries that we found we could have made adjustments to the books and records, but they were not small enough for us to affect the financial statements. And that is also included in that required, the required communication letter. All in all, I think probably one of the most important things that I should communicate to the board is that we as auditors felt like we had open transparency. We asked a lot of questions. We asked for a lot of documents, and everything that we asked for, we were provided in a timely fashion. We were never denied access to anything. And we felt like we had the ability to ask for whatever we needed to in order for us to fill our professional standards in the audit process. So I think that transparency is very important for everyone to know. I think that now that we've kind of cleaned up the financial statements from the prior years, going forward, I think the audit ought to go much, much smoother and much more timely. I think that we're looking at doing the audit work in sometime in like the month of May and having the financial statements actually filed with the state by July 31st. And I think that is very doable as well. This first year just took a little longer cleaning up and trying to figure out what was being recorded in the prior years and how that affected the current year. And we've now gotten past all of that. And so next year ought to run much, much smoother. Gloria, do you have any comments or anything further that you would like me to discuss?
I don't have any specific comments during that time. One of the biggest kind of aha moments for me was that our water fund balance changed significantly after looking at our ending fund balance and our beginning fund balance. So it changed by about $200,000. So that was a significant finding that I was not anticipating. But other than that, I appreciate all the hard work that you did, and Matt put in many, many hours. This is quite a learning opportunity for both of us.
Well, and I appreciate your all's assistance in the process, both with us and with Christine. I know you guys have full-time day jobs, and we are in addition to that, and making time for us to pull the documents and answer questions is very important to the process. And there are some municipalities out there that put us on the back burner, and it's very difficult to get through the audit in that case. But you all were very good to work with, and I appreciate the effort and the importance you put forth on the audit. Thank you. Are there any questions from the trustees?
You answered mine in your sort of closing statement, and that was, I was wondering if it was going to be hopefully easier for you all next year after getting it sort of sorted out this, this initial audit. But no, and I'm just really glad to hear that it was transparent or the staff was transparent and timely, and it's just, yeah, really good to hear. Thank you.
All right,
Okay,
Gloria, that's all I have. I'll let you guys move on to more important pressing business.
well, James, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to new business, 4A, notice of petition to establish OHV route.
Okay, long and short of it is we had a petition submitted on the 18th of October. The purpose of this petition is to reestablish the OHV routes that we had back in 2021 with some minor changes. Main things to keep in mind with this petition is that there is a window to protest the petition if anybody in the community finds something, substance or process that is insufficient that we might have missed. Otherwise, afterwards, the final, assuming there's no open protest at points when the protest ends, the final finding of sufficiency will occur on the 28th or 29th of November. And that will begin a 20-day window for the town board of trustees to consider the petition. And from there, we can see if it'll be approved, if a special election will be triggered, or what happens from there.
Thank you, Matt.
Any questions?
I just have one about the budget impact. If it goes to a special election, I feel like is that, I don't remember, but is that more expensive than the previous special election we had? I feel like that.
I think it is by about $500. I think that might just be a 10% addition just to adjust for inflation.
Okay, thanks.
We did increase it $500.
Okay.
Just in case.
Forgive me if I missed this, and I should probably know this by now, but after the point of when it goes to potentially a special election, that window of time, it looked like, was January 27th to April 27th. Whose responsibility is it to determine the date of that special election?
Yes, so assuming that's the final determination of sufficiency, 29th of November, that's when that window kind of takes place. And the determination of if and when to put it to special election, whether to approve it outright or to put it to a vote, that is the responsibility of the legislative body, which in our case is the board of trustees. And that would happen within that 20-day window after the final determination of sufficiency.
Right, got it. Thank you, Matt.
All right. Anything else on this topic? And we will move along to, thank you, Matt. We'll move along to new business item 4B, which is the Phillips Avalanche Blue Zone use subject to review application, proposed single family home lots E.5, 10 through 12, block 18, corner of Mineral and 12th Street, Silverton, Colorado.
Matt, would you please promote Katie to panelists?
And just a quick clarification question. Is this a public hearing or something else?
It's a use subject to review.
I believe it's a public hearing.
Yeah, so it was noticed in the newspaper and it would be a public hearing.
Okay, cool. So just for everyone's clarification, since this is going to be treated as a public hearing, since this is a public hearing, we will hear a summary from staff as to what we're looking at. Then the applicant will be given an opportunity to address the board, and then we will have discussion, potential Q&A with the board, staff, and the applicant. And then we'll close discussion and we'll make a decision.
Good evening,
Oh,
Board of Trustees.
I apologize. I skipped, there's a public comment period as well. So sorry about that. Sorry, Katie, go ahead.
No, you're good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I know you all read the staff report, so I'm going to go through the project briefly for you and happy to answer any questions that you have on it. As you saw, this is an application for a new single-family residence within the Avalanche Hazard Overlay District. So the Avalanche Hazard Overlay District in this area where the property is located is in the blue zone. And that's based on the map that the town goes by, that it's been adopted with the town code. So the location of the property, I'm sure you're all aware of it. You have Mineral Street and you have East 12th Street. There is a little bit of a background to this property that I wanted to give a brief overview of, not as much as I gave to Planning Commission last week on. But essentially, this application was rezoned back in 2003. It was subdivided and the town at that time made a motion to rezone it. So the property is actually zoned BP district. And within the BP district, they were non-conforming at the time. And then through the rezoning and a further re-subdivision in 2019, the property became more further in compliance. So it is now in compliance with the underlying zoning district that it was rezoned to, that BP district. So I'm saying this because part of the Avalanche district, in order to build in that overlay, you also have to meet the requirements for that zone district. So kind of checking off that box, we did a bunch of research in the past files and we did confirm that where the setbacks are for the development and what the applicant is proposing is in conformance for the zone district. That includes setbacks that have been platted previously. There's also some older subdivision agreements that state different setbacks for utilities and property lines. So the applicant is aware of all of those, and their application materials they submitted show that they will comply with all of those required setbacks. They'll also have to meet all the other requirements for the BP district. That will include height for the building height, things like that. So moving on a little bit more into that blue zone, you can see on the map here, you have the red line, and then you have the yellow is approximately where their property is located on the map. The other map that was included in your staff report is just that we have been working with the town to assist in getting some of those maps online. So they can't be official adopted maps without going through a code process, but we do like to show them in our staff reports now because we think they're a lot clearer to read when they sync up to those properties. So as stated, the applicant did go ahead and they did submit a site plan. I'm not gonna put too much on this because I know you've had a lot of items on this meeting. So getting into the Avalanche Hazard District itself. I know that you're all very familiar with the district. You're aware Silverton has a few different sections of town that fall within this code, and you understand what the purpose of the district is. So with that said, the proposed single-family residence is a use permitted by right within the zoning district. It's up to the property owner to ensure that the construction is satisfactory to being within that hazard overlay. So why I say that is that when an applicant is in the blue zone, based on the town code language, they're not required to submit a report to the town. However, that doesn't mean that they are prohibited from meeting or prevent that with the building department can enforce all requirements. And so the property owner has had a report done. They've had a lot of discussions with engineers. They know what needs to be built to make this a structurally sound house. But from the code language, the Planning Commission for their recommendation and the Board of Trustees for their vote cannot necessarily reflect on that report. It did not need to, because it doesn't need to be submitted within the blue zone. So it sounds a little bit confusing because they have a report. It wasn't provided to the town, but we also couldn't require it. But the applicant, and I believe they're going to speak tonight online, is also very confident in what they know they need to build, especially from some connections to the town and family members who live adjacent, or I think they built adjacent to this property. So they understand that they're in the Avalanche district. They've submitted the indemnification agreement, which is extremely important for the town. The town did get that notarized already from them, and the town will require the applicant to record it on the property. And what that indemnification agreement does is also say from the owner's behalf, I understand I'm building in this district and there could be liability. but the town is not going to be responsible for this on my property. So that part of the requirement has been taken care of also from the applicant's end. As noted, the structure is proposed to meet the underlining district for the BP zone. And also for the indemnification agreement is one thing that you have a right to require that we did get and is authorized. Then moving on, we did suggest a couple of conditions, and these are really already required in the code. You could question if you had to make them conditions because the applicant has to follow them anyway if they're in the code. But we did suggest them because it just really helps is the application, if it gets approved and it moves forward to building permit, it's an extra step that the town can make sure whoever is reviewing that building permit or future development is being followed. And it just doesn't get lost in a motion and in a staff report, and then people kind of forget about it. These conditions, in theory, hopefully a building permit gets submitted and the town looks back at the staff report, looks back at the vote and sees these conditions. And it's a better way for the town to make sure they're staying on track with what's required for these applications. So I wanted to say that because I also wanted to recognize that the conditions that are proposed are really just reiterating code requirements. And I'm happy to hear any thoughts you have on that. And one of those also was on people who lease at this time. The applicant says that they will, as the property owner, they will live there year round, or they will not rent it. If they rent it, any renter also needs to submit a written notarized indemnification agreement to the town. So the town code does give you a little bit of extra security with that requirement. It is a burden on the owner in the town to make sure that it gets submitted and to try to find out when a property is leased. So that's a little bit more of the maintenance down the road, but at this point that is not going to be applicable since the applicant or the owner applicant is saying that they will not rent it. So quick overview from the Planning Commission last week, and this was in your staff report also. The Planning Commission did really emphasize, they felt they were a little disappointed that they couldn't require an engineered report with all of the applications that come in from the blue zone. So they did just want to note that, but they recognized that it wasn't a code requirement and that the property owner will still have to meet all building code requirements. And they also recognize that the owner knows what they're doing by building in this hazard overlay district. They did make a motion to recommend the Board of Trustees approve the request with the proposed conditions that are before you tonight also. So I'll put those up, but I'll send it back to you for your public comment and any questions that you have.
Thank you, Katie. That was super helpful. So now let's look to the applicant. Do we have Tyson or Alexis on? I guess maybe she could play Zoe. Hi, Zoe, you're on. If you unmute yourself, you have the floor. Oh, still muted.
So I think
You're muted.
Sorry about that. I don't know that we have much else to say other than what Katie said. Thank you so much, Katie, for going through all that for us. We did have an avalanche study done, so we are aware of what is being suggested for the area. So I suppose if anyone has any questions, we're here to answer.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, just stay on and we'll
Okay.
probably come back to some Q&A shortly. So now why don't we open up to public comment period? Any in-person comments first, and then if you're on Zoom and you'd like to make a public comment, please click the raise hand button and we will promote you to panelist to make a comment. Any in-person comments? It does not look like we have any public comments. We'll turn to discussion and Q&A. Is there anything you guys, Tyler and Jim, would like to add to Katie's overview since you guys sat on the Planning Commission discussion as well?
Yeah. Specifically, the property owner next to her is her father. And his building sits between the proposed house and the avalanche pad. And it was designed up to specific pressure standards that are actually past what we have in our code. He pointed out to us, and it's a real barrier between the house and the avalanche zone. So I didn't think that there was much problem with them building in that avalanche zone. I mean, it's like a bulkhead. So.
Thank you.
Yep. No, my only addition is that it was a very positive discussion, a lot of information provided, and we are going to move ahead on this.
My question kind of falls into like the notification of the hazard, and whether that just has to be the general notification of like you're in the blue zone, or the notification of the actual time when it could actually be a hazard. Like that's not the like, I'm just reading like that. So like if we think there's actually a chance that the house could get hit by an avalanche, is it our responsibility to knock on their door?
No, it's for them building in that area that it's been historically an avalanche pad, is my understanding.
Yeah, and this is the bottom of the rabbit ears, right?
No. Oh yeah, rabbit ears.
Maybe the rabbit ears.
I think it is rabbit ear.
I think there's a map somewhere in there.
It's rabbit ears.
Right where the train comes in.
Yeah.
So is that something, Katie, you're able to respond to?
I agree with whoever responded that my reading interpretation of the code doesn't say you have to knock on their door. It does say the town should have signs on the roads. And I did put in the staff report, I believe that should be up to the town to do and not put the burden on individual property owners within the avalanche district, because it's not like you need to sign at every property. But you should have a general informational sign on the side of the public right away that says when someone is entering into that district. However, you don't need to go knock on their door to tell them if there is a immediate threat.
Got it. So it sounds like independent of this public hearing, we should have a conversation about signage that would be helpful, designating different avalanche zones in town.
I think it would be useful, especially you have a few more applications coming up in the next month within the avalanche district. And so maybe as more buildings are coming up, being proposed in this area, that the town could put up more signs potentially.
Got it. Thank you. Right, so we'll note that for future near-term discussion. Trustees, any other questions or comments? Sally? Just because you're not here, I'll call you out. So I guess the only other question that Katie posed is, how do we feel about the reiteration of these conditions that are also in the code? Is restating the code specifically as these conditions helpful, necessary, unnecessarily duplicative? What do we think?
I like that there's only 3 and not more, like often we've seen. I think that's helpful. I appreciated how you pulled it out, Katie, and said, like, we don't really have to put this in there because by the nature of the code, they have to follow the code. But I also think it's helpful to potentially both the property owners and staff. And so if staff likes it and if property owners think it's helpful, then I don't really have a problem with it. But again, just noting that they'd have to do this anyways, so we're not putting any additional burden on the property owners. But it helps keep things at the forefront of things they especially should pay attention to, and staff should especially be checking for.
I only had an administrative question really, which is, if we're going to duplicate the code, I think it's important that we make sure that this conforms exactly to what the code says today, but also is forward-looking so that if the code changes, that this gives deference to the code. And I was just wondering if there's something we can add so that If it changes, the code supersedes and not a condition that we decide on today.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Knowing that in theory, the town may be mending their code in the next couple of years. If you have two options, one, you can let them basically be locked into the current code requirements, or you can say, or as future, I'll come up with something that sounds better than this, but basically, or as modified in the future, under the regulations, for the municipal code. So definitely, I know the applicant, I believe, is gonna build pretty quickly as their plan, or at least to submit building permit plans. As soon as those building permit plans are submitted, then they're kind of locked into the current code for setbacks and things. So in this case, I would say it's not maybe quite as important as some other ones, but definitely good that you're thinking of that. And I'd be amenable if you added that. I would have no opposition to you suggesting those changes for sure.
Well, thank you. And I definitely see your point about this being kind of like a moment in time based on these specific conditions as opposed to something that applies ongoing in the future. Any other comments or discussion? If not, there's a suggested motion in our packet.
Yeah, I'll make a motion. Should I add unless the code changes or some verbiage like that, or?
I think in general, that's great, but I'm persuaded by Katie's point that all of these conditions are relevant only to the building process and not an ongoing limitation.
Excellent. Okay, I move that the recommended conditions set forth in the October 2024 staff report be taken and that the Board of Trustees approve the request for the use by special review application for an avalanche hazard development permit to allow a single family residence within the avalanche hazard overlay district for the property located at the east half of lots 10, 11, and 12 within tract B of Silverton.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Davis,
Yes.
trustee Cranker,
Yes.
trustee Harper,
Yes.
trustee Bureau,
Yes.
trustee George,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney,
Yes.
Mayor Berman.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. And thank you so much for joining us tonight, and good luck with the building process.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, Katie. That was super helpful.
I mean, I guess it would probably.
I don't want to hold up your meeting, but I appreciate your input because I'll work on those, thinking about that in future conditions for other applications. So thank you.
Great.
Good to share. Got the one in Lake City.
Mhm.
All right, so we will now move on to new business 4C. First reading of ordinance 2022-11 and ordinance of the town of Silverton for limited rezoning and amending the official zoning map regarding property known as lots 9 through 12, block 2, Reese Edition.
Okay. So before you is an amendment to the official zoning map at lots 9 through 10. Actually, sorry, that was a typo. Block 2 Reese Edition on Mineral Street from R2 multifamily residential to EDL Economic Development Overlay District, Limited Overlay District. This ordinance was submitted by Paul and Becky Joyce following the April 25th Board of Trustees meeting where they received conditional approval for their rezoning application. The approved application proposed rezoning the project site from R2 to EDL to permit 3 tiny homes on wheels. Tiny homes on wheels fall into the RV park category, which is only permitted in the ED district. The intent of this project is to promote affordable housing and diversification of housing stock in Silverton. This ordinance and limited land use agreement that you see in your packet outlines 22 conditions that prohibit this project site from other ED land uses such as welding shops, manufacturing facilities, and high impact repair shops that may disrupt neighbors in the R2 district. This was a bit of a last minute agenda item. So there are a few typos in this. And so I just ask that if you do choose to approve, that you add in your motion to approve with administrative edits. And they're just minor edits.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Trustees?
Minor edits meaning typo.
Typos.
Typos.
So there is a typo in there with the wrong name. Yeah, so you may have caught that one. That's a good one. And then there's mention of BPL instead of EDL. So those are the two typos. And then there also is condition, there's 21 conditions listed, condition 22 was a condition suggested by the board to allow property owners to revert back to R2 upon request. Yeah.
And noting for the record that in addition to those, the reference from 9 through 12 is throughout as well and should be 9 and 10. Lots 9 and 10. Cool.
Okay, this was very last minute to get to you all. But we wanted to accommodate his request because he does have some potential tenants, so.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
My only question, you guys, is I remember when we were first reviewing this, we had a discussion about the potential need for short-term income to be made on like an exception to having an RV on the property. Is that something we need to include or at this point disregard? Does that need to be in this?
Yeah, I can speak to that. The board and the applicants agreed on allowing one RV to be there until October 31st, which we can also amend the ordinance to include that. But because this wouldn't be passed until after then, I didn't know if we wanted to include that or not. So if you want me to add that into the amended version, I would be happy to do so.
Right. So at this point, it's a moot point. We don't really need to acknowledge that that was a part of this whole discussion because it will be approved after the date upon which that would be approved.
Yes.
That's kind of what you're saying, Lucy?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Got it.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the reading of ordinance 2022-11 for the rezoning of lots 9 through 10. Block 2, Reese Edition, Silverton, San Juan County, Colorado, from R2 to ED-L for proposed land use of 3 tiny home on wheels RV park space with associated proposed improvements, including storage sheds, with the stated intent to promote affordable housing in Silverton.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Davis.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Trustee Harper.
Yes.
Trustee Bureau.
Yes.
Trustee George.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martin.
Yes.
Mayor Plummer.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Cindy. Yes, thank you, guys.
All right, so now we'll move along to the next item on our agenda, which is approval of consent agenda items.
I just want to note in your approval of the consent agenda items is a application for the mistletoe market happening December 9th at Kendall Mountain Community Center. They did request vendor a waiver for their vendor policy waiver, but according to our new fee waiver policy, we no longer waive vendor fees. So that was denied. Administratively.
Big packet.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Davis.
Yes.
Trustee Craig.
Yeah.
Parker.
Yes.
Trustee Garrett.
Yes. Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Now move on to the next item on our agenda, which is staff reports.
So I'd like to announce that I'll be out of the office October 26th through November 3rd. Our town clerk, Matt Green, will be the acting administrator while I'm away. I would also like to request a special meeting to be held on November 7th at 7 p.m. after our work session at 5 p.m. To review possibly 4 applications that will be coming from the Planning Commission. This is an attempt to shorten our already full meeting on November 14th.
Does anyone have a
Say
comment?
that date again.
November 7th.
November 7th. So we currently have a work session at 5 o'clock and this would be at 7.
I will have to zoom in, but I should be available.
I also will have to zoom in and it's TBD whether I'll be available.
Okay. But the rest we might have.
I'll obviously be zooming in, but my question is to avoid, if that's true for a lot of us, to avoid like starting at 5 and then having somewhat of a gap or a delay. Is there a way to just streamline that? Unless, Gloria, you're pretty certain that that first bit of work is going to take the full 2 hours. Is there a way to just make sure that the scheduling is streamlined there?
Yeah, I could schedule it to be at like 6:30, so that in case there's any gap there and we go over, at least people would know that next meeting started at 6:30. Would that work?
So that work session is pretty stacked as well.
It is pretty stacked. So we'll be reviewing the nonprofit requests as well as our partner organizations. I have invited those that the Planning Commission did not, that the Finance Committee did not recommend funding the full amount. They are allowed to come and plead their case, basically. And then everyone that the Finance Committee recommended approval of might be present, but they're not necessarily going to be presenting. About 3 to 4 presentations.
Okay. Can those things all be can those presenters all be given time constraints?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so if we wanted to start the meeting at 6:30, I think we could do that as well.
So start the first work session at 5 and notice the next meeting for 6:30. That's what you're suggesting, Gloria? Yeah, okay.
And the main agenda for that 6:30 meeting is a variety of Planning Commission applications.
Yeah, we
Sure.
Planning Commission meeting on the 1st, and then.
Yeah, so they'll be reviewing, I think, at least 4 applications. I think actually more on the 1st. Sorry, guys. And then in order to try and make our meeting a little shorter on the 14th, because it is already pretty full.
Thanks.
That's the day after our very last daylight savings.
Making the time change for me,
Can we
4-hour difference.
pass some
4 hours.
anti-daylight savings time for the Silverton? Maybe it'll catch on.
Just for a little
Become like Arizona.
That's our attorney on that one.
The county will be different, the town will be different, and the neither will be.
Well, it's divided at 12th Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about daylight savings? And just on that route in different time?
Okay, anything else in staff reports that to call out?
Yeah, I do want to call on Todd here. He has a nice little report for Kendall.
Sure. I wanted to just provide a real quick update. We had our licensing inspection with the Colorado Passenger Tramway Safety Board yesterday. The chairlift passed the inspection with no deficiencies. And I really wanted to take a moment to highlight Chris Higgins for all his hard work and just kind of acknowledge him. The inspector was highly complimentary of the preparation and condition of the chairlift, and that I think that really speaks volumes about Chris and his dedication, and wanted to just kind of acknowledge him for a moment. Beyond that, we are fully staffed as of this morning, which is really exciting. I feel like we've got a jump start, way better shape than last year as far as being staffed, being in a position to open now that particularly that our inspection is done. We're almost done with paver removal on the skating rink and looking forward to getting that going. And again, really just wanted to acknowledge Chris for how much he's done to really put us in good shape for this year.
Nice. Okay, Chris.
Awesome. On that note, also, I got our early classes to come online and it was super easy and I highly recommend it. I think the deadline for that, Todd, is the 31st, right?
Excellent thing you point out. Early bird passes are still on sale. They are still cheap and they are still available. But I believe it ends on the 31st. So we would encourage everyone to get a pass if they haven't already. Thank you, Sally.
That's all we have, unless you have questions on the staff reports.
Okay, awesome. So we'll now move along to committee reports, beginning with the Finance Committee.
Okay, you're good. Minutes. We reviewed sales tax. And year to date for sales tax for the town, we're up 2% from 2021 numbers. We're up 30% from 2019 numbers. October numbers, which is what we most currently reviewed, which are really August's numbers, but reported in October. Basically flat from 2021. It was up 0.25%. Comparing to 2019, we were up 27%. For that October reporting. We looked at our fee schedule. So Gloria was referencing that. Basically, Matt gave us a really beautiful color-coded spreadsheet with all of our fee schedule outlined there. Looking at what's new, there were just a few new proposed fees and things we might need better documentation for, we might need to have policies for. So it was a really big, heavy lift that Matt and Melina have done to review our fee schedule and just again, institute a little bit more organizational infrastructure. So that I think will be coming to us at some point soon. And then the Finance Committee really had to rank our favorite children, and it was quite challenging. No, we had our nonprofits requests. Basically, we, as you remember, had budgeted around $40,000 in this category. So $30,000 plus 10 kind of discretionary. If things came up, and the total nonprofit request was $98,000. So the Finance Committee, we had a really productive work session, moved some folks around and just had a really good, I think, first pass at talking through some of these requests and kind of how they fit with the role of what the town can and should be funding. So we did a first pass of some very hard work and it'll be coming to the whole board soon. And you all can pick your favorite children. Rank your favorite children.
And we cut 98,000.
We got it to 50,000. Yes. I mean, partly we moved some to partners, which is my husband, the economist, would say it's all fungible. It's all from the same pot of money. But yes, we did appropriately move some to more of our partner funding. And we had really great, it was a good work session, productive.
Yeah.
I think that was it. Oh, and then we reviewed the audit.
She takes really good notes.
I won't remember it otherwise.
And we love all of our children.
You do.
That's what we learn.
I feed some of them more than others.
That's right.
No.
Some of them less that we do. But the one thing I wanted to say that highlight from the fact that we got $98,000 requested is just how amazing that is of what people in the community are trying to do. And that just really stood out to me, that it meant that there were that many folks in the community working on important things that affect all of us and our friends and neighbors. And so that was cool.
And they were hard decisions because they were all really good projects.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, yeah.
Nice. Sally, did you have a question before?
No, I just had to get up and get a snack.
Okay, sorry.
Can you give me one?
Well, thank you very much. Super helpful and looking forward to going through all that on the 7th.
I do have one more comment, and it's mainly just about the subcommittee itself. Taking difficult topics, taking topics that would frustrate some, we actually had a really good time doing it. Great conversations, kept it light, but really got into the meat and potatoes of it and came up with real solutions to some of the issues. And then we're able to dig in to a lot of the facts and just kept it lighthearted and going forward and really got through it. We did it in only 3 hours.
Yeah.
It's only 3 hours.
That was good for us. Yeah. We were worried there for a point in time.
And Gloria kept pushing it. Well, you guys have to rate this or put a number here, or say a resolution. I actually got a public feedback to me about someone who had tuned into that meeting and said, wow, if all like work sessions and budget meetings were like this productive and collegial, I might have to like run for town board. I thought that was really great. It was good. Good for everybody.
See, we're making it fun.
Make it.
We got off to a slow start, but yeah, we got going.
If you guys want to keep holding the mic, the next one is Planning Commission.
Yeah. The Planning Commission went over and reviewed the Phillips plan, which just came in front of us. So that was the first one. And then the second one was the proposed residence at 8th and Snowden. And the Planning Commission wanted to, they requested the reason that the Army Corps of Engineers no longer considered the wetlands a judicial wetlands. Yeah, so I'm going to review that on a special meeting on the 1st, and then it'll come back to you all.
And we also had training.
I was in another meeting. I was in an ambulance meeting. I'm sorry if you want to, you were in the training though.
It was really long. It was very informative. It lasted 2.5 hours. And we felt like we were doing things correctly, which was really good. Those are the only notes I had on that training session. Because some of it was redundant for us, but what it really did is it gave us all a refresher of our roles within the community, but on the board as well. What we're working towards, what is there and what we most definitely need to improve. And that, I think that for me, I took that away the most was we do have room to improve, like all areas. And what's really neat about the Planning Commission, like all of our other boards, is we're getting there. We're moving in the right direction. So that's it.
Oh, you guys are making me not want to go on vacation. This is fun.
Oh.
Go on vacation.
Whoa.
Take it.
We're fun, but we're not that fun.
All right, and then we had 2 Parks and Rec meetings. And we have Mr. Parks and Rec here if you'd like to recap the meetings for us.
Sure. The first meeting was primarily discussion of the DHM master plan and next steps for the Kendall deck. I think both of those kind of outcomes from that will be coming to the board in its entirety in the coming weeks. Certainly by early December, I think we targeted to kind of bring those everybody. I think that would probably be a more appropriate time to dive into the meat of those conversations. And then the meeting tonight was the results of the capital improvement program voting, which is included in your packet for review. Pretty exciting stuff. So really fun.
Awesome. Thank you.
And if anyone has questions in the short term regarding DHM or the Kendall deck, I'd be happy to answer those.
Great. And then to cap it off, the library board met.
And well, it was on the agenda that we met, and then I was the only one that showed up. So we're gonna have to move on. But if you haven't checked out all the programming that is going on at the library, it is extensive. And so like just go by the door and see all the flyers on the door and how many events are going on, especially around Halloween now. So if you're looking for something to do, and it's Halloween, like they've been partnering, I think with Silverton Strong as well, to do some events. And yeah, Misty's just taken the library and is running with it. And she also has scheduled to do a short-term fix to the roof that has been leaking. So Lauren will be assisting with that. So yep, good things are happening.
Misty's yoga classes, which are not at the library, are also awesome. Great. So that brings us to the next item on our agenda, which is trustee reports.
I will piggyback on what Gloria was saying. If anybody in the community or on the board wants some fun stuff for Halloween, this is community-wide stuff. So there should be flyers around town, but Saturday there is a Halloween party at the library from 3 to 5 for kids and adults. There will be a costume judging contest, so dress appropriately. And then Sunday, we're going to do a parade again, Halloween parade starting at the hardware store. And we'll hit whatever businesses are open and just let people have a chance to see all the families and kids in costumes. And then we'll end in Memorial Park, and community members can do a trunk or treat. So if you feel like you never get to see the trick or treaters at your house, bring your car, open up your trunk, and you can give candy to kids. It's all safe and approved, I promise. So that'll be happening at Memorial Park. I suspect we'll be at the park by 11:45 or so. So again, meeting at the hardware store at 11 on Sunday, the 30th, ending in Memorial Park. There'll be some refreshments from Coffee Bear and just a chance to hang out. So if you don't want to trunk or treat or anything, but you just want to come hang out, come to the park around 11:45 or 12 on Sunday, and then traditional trick or treating happening on Monday. And if you want people to come to your house, turn your porch light on. If you don't, turn it off.
When you walk
That's the
by
thing.
businesses, can we pass out candy?
Yes,
Oh, okay, good.
absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. So that's
Only
what's happening
trucks,
for Halloween.
Not like indoors or anything.
I mean, you could bring a wagon, you could bring anything, it's income. Just no free puppies, no free puppies.
Cool, thank you.
Is there an update on the movie? Silverton Strong's doing it. Not yet?
Not
Okay.
yet. It's not fully baked.
How was the potluck?
Potluck was awesome. Yeah, so community builders and the town co-hosted a potluck at Kendall to celebrate the completion of the master plan that I think was intended as a thank you to the community builders team, but they spent most of the time thanking Silverton, which was really sweet as well. But it was great. I think people were kind of just hanging out and talking about the master plan and reveling at the community coming together cohesively to create a really important document for our future. And there were some great potluck items that were brought as well. And thank you to the businesses that contributed food also. I had a trustee report thought, which was figuring out if there's some way to tell people how they can get involved in the community more, or like where there are needs, perhaps broader than the viewer base of our YouTube channel. And I don't have a good solution for it, but I thought, obviously there's notices that are formal for when there's elected positions like this board, the county commissioners, school board, but I'm not sure if there's a mechanism we could come up with for helping people know about needs that Silverton Strong has, or 4th of July Association, or even attending pickup soccer that Jordan hosts, or perhaps pickup hockey this winter. And I was just wondering if we could put our collective minds together to figure out a good way to kind of have a listing of like where people who want to get involved in less formal ways than these boards can still get involved.
Are you thinking like electronic, or are you thinking?
Whatever the most effective mechanism would be, somewhere that I guess people can show up and be like, hey, or like if Powerhouse, like is another example where I think things happen there that seem really cool and fun, but I think there's still a good chunk of the community that may not know about them. And so how can we help facilitate that? Yeah, I think maybe like a digital bulletin board on the website, or even like a physical bulletin board.
I'd vote for physical because then it would be a place of gathering as well. Just in terms of like,
is it a chamber thing?
Possibly.
I think it's really an important topic because I hear from different people that they just don't know what source to go to know what's happening. And that, you know, the chamber has some things up to date. I know the creative district was keeping a calendar, but that's kind of a little bit more creative district stuff. They don't necessarily want to manage it for the whole town wide.
I mean, that's another huge one I should mention, like, how do you get involved in the creative district?
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah. I think there's like two pieces. There's like what's happening around town, and there's the like, how could I plug in? We don't do that well.
Well, cool. Yeah, not for necessarily coming up with a solution tonight, but just to have on people's minds and revisit at some point.
Yeah.
Question, bump outs. Now that we've had the first snow, when are they being picked up?
We have been removing them at the request of businesses as they essentially notify us that they're done. So if anyone would like their bump outs removed, all they have to do is get in touch with myself or Chris Higgins. We'd be happy to go get them. Typically, we try and leave them out as long as we possibly can, and some business owners prefer that. So case by case is how we've been handling that.
Anything else in trustee reports? Okay, great. Moving on to continued business, 9A, cemetery fence.
So for some context here, with cemetery fence, last year around this time, well, actually it was in August, Todd and I met with Bev Rich, as the director of the Historical Society, and discussed an MOU for the management of the cemetery. A request was made to budget and take down the cemetery fence. This was included in the 2021 budget, as well as pulled out in the budget narrative. In January of 2022, volunteers offered to begin taking down the fence. This was approved by staff, and some citizens noticed the volunteers taking down, became upset. A group of citizens asked that we stop taking down the fence, and members from the Historical Society had no idea that there was ever this MOU or this meeting that had been done, or the request to take down the fence. So Todd can give you an update on how much of the fence still remains up. This gets a little bit more tricky as we have had a cemetery committee established, but I have no context on how members were selected, terms, or the powers of the committee. So trying to define that as well at some point, and potentially inviting the committee here to kind of talk through with the board on how to move forward. There, it is our only active citizen committee. So I want to be really mindful on if it's an advisory, if they have roles, just to clear that up, especially for staff. And then for tonight's discussion, we're requesting that the trustees decide if there should be a new fence erected at the cemetery, and possibly at a later date, we would like to get the cemetery and the board come together to talk about the role of the cemetery committee.
If we were to decide one way or the other, when would the town be taking action to erect a fence or to take down the remainder of the fence?
This would be for 2023.
Cool. Okay, so then there's a leading question. Because I think it would be really helpful to find out. I mean, we obviously saw the result of the citizen input, but I think it'd be really helpful to find out more about the committee and what the committee recommends before this board makes a decision.
And I would say that the committee is very split on this decision, which is why they requested that it go to the citizens for the vote. But I think split, and that's why I'm bringing it to you all.
Would it make sense to have like a joint work session with the committee to find out why they're split? And then, you know, if they need us to be the deciding vote one way or the other, then we at least would have all of their
input,
kind of educated input.
And kind of along those lines, I was wondering if there's any other expert that needs to be brought into that fold as well in terms of decision making. So if it's like a matter of wildlife migration or cemetery management in general, or I'm not sure what else might be going into the fence decision, but if there are other components of that decision that would benefit from some sort of expert input, then maybe we can sort of lump that into what Shane was talking about.
That's a great suggestion too. So what do other cemeteries do? Are they mostly gated or not gated?
So, oh, go ahead. Oh, so Uray just took down their fence.
Yeah.
And kind of a trend that we've been noticing is that it's a way to preserve open space. And that, so a lot of people have been taking down their fence as like a way to kind of keep that open space for animals, but I don't have like hard facts either way on that. So I would have to dig into that prior to the meeting.
I can't wait to meet Sally's cemetery fence expert.
I'll try and track him down.
I was sort of headed in the direction that Gloria mentioned of like, what do other towns do? How do they manage, you know, large cemeteries versus small ones, wilder ones versus like, you know, right in an urban space. I guess I was just going for, yeah, I like, good joke though, Jeff.
I agree with what you were looking for. I just had to take a stab at that. That was really.
Yeah, it was good. It was,
Halloween.
fair enough.
We
Fair
lived
enough.
next to a cemetery in New Jersey. It was a historic cemetery, and it was like basically our backyard. It was just all open. Our kids learned to play hide and seek in the cemetery. And I was like, is this morbid? Is this good? I'm not sure, but it was just all very, yes, very beautiful and historic. And it was just part of our backyard. And it freaked people out when they went to our house, but we never had any problems.
I would say our cemetery committee has decades of experience. We have a wonderful citizen committee, particularly Bev and Fetch and Casey, who are probably cemetery experts at this point.
Yeah.
Nice. Are they all historical society board members?
I believe so.
But I guess circling back to the opening question is just, it feels like we're not delaying the action we would take even if we did make a decision tonight. So it seems like we have plenty of time to diligence this a little bit more and have conversations.
And I do want you all to sit down with the committee anyway, so we can define some roles.
Yeah.
Right, we'll schedule that out.
Anything else on that topic? Okay, moving on to continue business 9B, entrance monument RFI.
So with no responses to our entrance monument RFI, I would like to request that we not go out for another RFI, but rather reach out to creative districts and regional artists directly who might be interested in this project. And then the trustees would still have the final say, and hopefully we could get maybe a couple of projects before you all to choose from. I have received feedback on the proposed location of the entrance sign. The worry is that we might need to redesign the Y at some point. And I would suggest that we move forward with securing an artist while simultaneously reaching out to CDOT for a timeline of fixing the Y. And then possibly if we put in the sign and potentially had to move it, we would write that into that redesign. But also keeping that in mind that maybe it might need to be moved at some point.
And if we are, I'm forgetting from the RFI, were we talking about if the wide stays the same, a sign at both junctures or just the main one? Because right now we have two billboard signs. One is looking worse than the other. But were we talking about both or one?
We were talking about both.
Yeah.
So entrance monuments, yes. And then there was also a proposed sign that would be on this end of town as well with the wayfinding master plan had proposed another sign as well. So potentially 3.
Well, maybe the Main Street, we can leverage that funding for, I saw signs in there.
I don't know, we got all these avalanche signs now.
I want a parklet. I saw a parklet in there and a parklet just sounds fantastic.
If we know artists or people who might know people who would be interested in getting involved in this, where do we direct them?
Oh, please direct them to me. Deanne has offered to help as well as part of the chamber to try and get the word out. And this would be going, so I'm going to you guys as an exception to our current purchasing policy since we tried that route and it's not working to get people. So trying to be a little bit more creative in how we approach this. And Deanne was even thinking maybe even doing like a little video that we could put out there and a call out for artists. So.
I have a process question.
Yes.
Given that we approved that one particular design that came out of the wayfinding plan, how important is it for artists and people who are, creative and want to be creative? How close are they trying to get to that design? And if there starts to be variations in the design, like how do we want to take that on process wise?
So we use that as a conceptual design, and that's how we worded it in the RFI, is that this is a conceptual design and we wanted to kind of stick to those parameters, but see what kind of creativity it elicit from the potential artists. So ultimately you all would have the decision moving forward. So I would hope to get a couple designs that you all could choose from and then evaluate them from there. Is that good enough for the process?
Yeah, I just want everyone, I guess I wanted, if someone was interested in working on the project, it sounds like a really creative solution for this one particular need in the community. I'm curious to see if it could potentially solve other needs in the community too, because I think there's a lot of potential in creating like character and just the sense of place that we were talking about earlier through using creative people and artists to create features like this for the community. So I just want it to be a process that like reaches the desired target and doesn't get kind of mucked up in the issue of process over, like, this is actually a really great product. Is there a way we can, get behind it and support it?
Well, so you're looking for a motion to solicit bids for the entrance monument with the creative district and regional artists as an exception to our purchasing policy?
Yes, I am. Yes.
So we do need a motion.
I am asking that because it is an exception to the purchasing policy that we passed.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Davis.
Yes.
Trustee Crane.
Yes.
Trustee Harper.
Yes.
Trustee Bierman.
Yes.
Trustee George.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Martin.
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you very much. All right, and so now we move to our closing public comment, and I'd like to congratulate everybody. We kept more than half of our attendees online from when we started to now. which is a recent success.
That's fantastic.
And they aren't all staff.
It's 100% more than what we retained in our in-person audience.
Right. If anyone
Warmer at home.
on Zoom would like to make a public comment, please click the raise hand button and we'll promote you to panelist. Please introduce yourself and then you have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm Gilbert Archuleta. I'm calling to make some public comment of what was talked about just earlier on the cemetery committee and the fencing. I was there at the meeting last year. Myself and Mike Maxfield, we were both said we'd like to be on the committee. We've never been notified that there is a committee or what's going on. We definitely would like to be on that committee. The fencing is to a lot of us in Silverton is a top priority to keep statues and actually cemetery plots from being destroyed by animals. But the other thing that I have questions is who actually is operating the cemetery? Is it the town? Is it the Historical Society? There was no MOU given out for that. But at one time, it sounded like the town gave it to the Historical Society to operate, and now the town's back involved. I have other issues where we got people calling and asking for plots, and they're told to go on Google Map and zoom in on the cemetery plots and put an X on it. If you run into something, move over just a little farther. All of that is unacceptable. There needs to be a better handle on it. Who's operating the cemetery? Who's in charge of it? And monies that are collected for plots and stuff should be there to continue to upgrade the map that has been plotted for the cemetery, instead of saying, we're just going to take a Google map and put an X on it. Plenty of people have bought family plots up there, and now all of a sudden it's going to be allowed to, you put an X on it and you go to your family plot and there's another body laying there. I know everybody's busy, but some things have to be prioritized. We're a year from where we were last year. Nothing has been accomplished. We need to move forward, and whoever's in charge of the cemetery or the cemetery committee or know who they are, if they could contact me, because I definitely would like to make a cemetery committee meeting, and I would definitely make the joint meeting with the town and the cemetery committee. But what's going on up there is unacceptable. In the past, there was always money put into the cemetery. They would hire people to maintain and keep the graves up and stuff. And nothing has been done for the past 12 years or 10 years. And it's just stuff like that, that has to be a priority also. Or figure out how it's going to be managed by town or historical society, but somebody needs to take the lead on this. And thank you for giving me the time to say my comments, and we'll see you at the combined meeting.
Thank you very much.
I know we don't typically respond to public comment. Okay.
I don't see any other public comment at this time, so we'll go ahead and close public comment. And we do have a request for an executive session this evening. And so at this time, I would entertain a motion to enter executive session under CRS section 24-6-4024A concerning the purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale of any real, personal, or other property interest.
So moved.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Davis?
Yes.
Trustee Krieger?
Yes.
Trustee Harper?
Yes.
Trustee Erla?
Yes.
Mr. George,
Yeah.
Chairperson Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Great. So thank you. So the way that anyone who's not familiar, this works is now that we've passed the motion to enter into executive session, we'll ask the public attendees to please voluntarily exit, which is a challenge for us on Zoom. So if you could please log out of the meeting, that would be awesome. If not, we'll just stop the meeting and restart. And then we'll have a closed meeting that will include just the contents of this executive session. And then following which we will reopen the meeting to adjourn the public meeting. And the only reason we'll be reopening to the public is to adjourn the meeting in a public forum. So let's take a 2-minute break.
You have Mr. Mayor, you have the script in your inbox if you got it.
I do. So let's take a quick 2-minute break, stretch our legs, get some water. But it looks like everyone left for us. So that was super nice. Why?